Okay, first we're going to see a short film by Neven.
This is one fisherman from Brač. They talk about.
So this fisherman is hardly a material who will solve the tragedy of the commons by himself and his coordination. Okay, so we can start actually with our discussion. And please, if there is anyone who has questions. But first, I just want to say that yesterday I read an interview with the guy whose name is Veljko Ostojić, and he's the head of Association of Hotel Owners or something. And actually he said that the biggest problem is that only last year there was 60,000 more beds in apartments, and that actually Croatia has less than 10% of hotel accommodation in the whole touristic accommodation. So actually, I don't know, maybe the solution is somehow, and you also had the example of hotels actually, that hotels can maybe more be, that is maybe one solution in trying to enlarge the hotel accommodation and lessen the apartment accommodation.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
Okay, that is the question you are going to, in just for the foreigners. Now, after allowing for this huge expansion, politicians are trying to maneuver the way out by saying that they are going to impose the growth limit or decrease the number of the private apartments, which is incredibly stupid idea from the legal point of view. You're not allowed to block somebody to do business. Okay, so you have in an apartment and somebody knocks at your door and they say, okay, you're not allowed to have an apartment anymore. You can take them to the court, and the legal system in Croatia is very bad, and they're going to make wrong calls, and then you're going to end up in Strasbourg, and then you're going to get all of your money back with interests. If you don't have so the governance that was allowing for the chaos and did not make any systems to set up the limits and the common sense of how the things should grow, now will impose the things to be dealt with retroactively. That is not possible within any legal system in Europe, regardless if it's Anglo-Saxon or it's Roman as we have it. You cannot retroactively make changes of somebody's well-being. Okay? If it's not, you can if somebody murders somebody or so on, but you are not allowed to limit your business entrepreneurship like that. So they're talking stupid, yeah.
If I just may add to this, there is maybe for a bit of context to this. When we talk about the 60,000, there are maybe two things that are making. We need to know from the economic point of view. First of all, the growth of these apartments, the rate of growth of these apartments is higher than the rate of growth of tourists in Croatia. So when we consider both the arrivals or overnight stays or whatever, there is much more apartments than new tourists. So essentially, the competition is steeper than it used to be. And the free market essentially is going to weed out some of them. That is inevitable. So essentially, for some people, it's not going to be possible. However, it's going to come with a cost that people invested and so on. And then they were shut out or pushed out of business because they were not profitable. So, it's a free market, it's a risk, and it happens, and it will happen. On the other hand, as well, it was said before, the state really cannot forbid anyone to use their property in the way they see fit. However, it's not even the way to solve it, because what we know in Croatian tourism is that we have an extremely low tax rates on this sort of tourism, which is in a sense encouraged almost as a social measure, because many people were using it as a rent and profit instead of, working, or as a supplement to them working. And we had a population that was really making the rational choice in this sense, and that was to turn their apartments into tourist accommodation, because it was very cheap to do it, in a sense that they didn't have to pay almost any tax on that profit. So essentially, if we are going to make a push on that sort of accommodation, forbidding people to use their property really isn't legally possible. But we are now also discussing on how to increase taxes on such tourism, which is also a problem, because when you essentially change the game in the middle of playing, also it introduces insecurities which are really not friendly to the market. I'm sorry for using this very liberal economic discourse, but essentially market works like that. So, we had a very bad policy on tourist accommodation for decades, encouraging people to just, do everything that is possible to turn our coastal cities into tourist machines, using their own property in doing so. And now we are, I would say, getting closer and closer to the line where we are at full capacity. And also where we are getting some sort of competition even from foreign investments in very similar local micro apartmentization from abroad, from people who are actually building as investments from other countries, for people from other countries, but also in this context where actually we are already, I would say, saturated by this particular type of tourism.
Okay, but then I somehow, if the problem is increasing taxes, for example, because it changes the rules of the game in the middle of a game, as you said, then in your presentation you actually presented us what will happen with Rijeka in 5 or 10 years. So we saw it, and so actually how to avoid it. If you say, so increasing taxes is wrong, maybe putting taxes on real estate is wrong, because it also changes. Well, somehow you must change something.
Yeah, maybe I expressed myself wrongly. The taxes on that should be increased, because now they are even almost non-existent. It's almost, I think there is some sort of, you need to have this fee per bed, which is very low. Maybe everyone knows better. I don't know what the fee is right now, but it's very low. And then your profit or whatever you are making from is. So I think that maybe, as I said, it will be very unusual to just steepen the tax rate at once. Maybe it's a gradual process. But also when we are discussing this, it is a very, in a sense, complex process. What we need, especially Rijeka, needs more urban planning, so it doesn't happen like it happened in Zadar, in Split, and other cities that were really, they were having these urbanistic plans that really allowed overbuilding. They were allowing this concentration of such tourist activities, and then they really have this sort of urban planning. So I think that would be one important thing. And also, of course, that's something that is really essential. So you don't just lean into this process and give up in the end. So there is urban planning that needs to be organized, and also there is another thing which now we are in the process of having new law on tourism, which essentially gives much more authority to the local municipalities, local government, which can be useful if, as Hrvoje again said, people who live there are aware of what is going on. Very often they are not, and I agree that people in Zadar actually deserve what happened because they didn't interfere with the process. But on the other hand, what we also know is that very often local municipalities are overrun by a much more powerful economic actors. We know that there are some, for example, in Zadar, it's this Doge group, which is a very big international investor, which is economically more powerful than a city itself times, multiple. As I understand, similar processes are going on in Rijeka as well. So I would say that the problem might be that, and also we do not need to forget about this very typical Croatian characteristic of corruption, which is always very welcomed unfortunately, by local governments. And the smaller the municipality, there is, I would say, more potential because there is this. The ratio between the economy, the investment, and the municipality is such that they really don't have the economic power to fight any of these processes. So this is why I would say we are at the moment in a rather pessimistic moment for Croatian tourism, and it requires probably much urbanism, urban thinking, economic thinking to actually get us out of the rut we're in right now.
Okay, thank you. So, but maybe we can stay a little bit in Rijeka. Maya presented at the beginning. She presented this project of new nautical marina, Porto Baros, and actually we spoke yesterday a little bit about it. So actually, what do you think? What's usually the ecological impact of such marinas being in the city? We said that actually it's not a problem because somehow in Porto Baros the sea is already there is no any flora and fauna. I mean, it was an industrial sea, but actually, so what's your opinion actually on marinas in the city?
Marina is more or less parking for ships, and I don't like idea where they put marinas in the most beautiful bays on island. And marina is city, I think it's normal, and this part of environment it's already sacrificed, and it's more or less already destroyed. Okay, the water is more or less, the sediment it's polluted, and it's quite difficult to clean it, to have some good environmental. And I think that this place, we had several researchers here, it's good for marina. I'm not included in any recent, I didn't do any research in Rijeka in the last 10 years. And I don't know really situation now, but it must be similar. I think that this is good place for marina. Much better than they do some marina in the Thres or Kirk in some bay. I think that this is, and you already have here all these port facilities, and you will not have some heavy building, as I know. They probably use these floating pontoons, and they already have other. I think that I'm favor on this to have marina here. And I read that this will be very modern marina with all new marina. Is better than before because we have new equipment, and I hope that here will be available that boat release this grey and sewage water from boats, which is not normal in our marinas. And I think that this may be a good example.
But maybe I can just ask you, because in your presentation you just presented pollutants in the sense of organic and non-organic pollutants, but actually the problem with nautical tourism is anchorage also, because this destroys biodiversity. Yes, so.
Okay, anchorage is another problem of nautical tourism because especially with these Posidonia meadows, because when you put anchorage you're destroying. That means that it will be good that in every bay where the boat stops for sleeping, we have this anchorage system to that boat not use own anchorage. Also, in other places when we have coral again or all this stuff, also the anchors destroyed during anchorage. In Croatia, all this is very liberal. You may stop everywhere. Even including our national park, you may anchorage anywhere. I think that we need to reduce place where everybody may anchorage, for sure. But now it's free and it's at all cost.
Thank you. Now, does anyone have a question maybe from the audience or comment? No, maybe you, Maya, in connection to your research.
Hi, thanks for quite an overwhelming amount of information. I think for the purpose of the project, it might be interesting to also think of course, we are considering the critical aspects of this marine being built, because we are seeing also, aside from environmental impacts that it could have, also impacts on the sort of social structure of the city, the development of the city, what it's going to bring to in terms of what type of services will appear, who they will be kind of affordable to, who they are going to be kind of addressed towards. So I'm not sure who this question is addressed to, but maybe just at the larger scale, the impacts of such marines and such spaces being built that you saw in other cities elsewhere maybe, and if this is sort of the trajectory that we can expect for Rijeka as well, and should be slightly worried about in a sense.
I think we should keep this simple and stupid. Who is going to benefit? If the city is going to benefit and somebody can make an argument, great. If not, then maybe we can do something else with this attractive part of the coast. But that never happens, because we don't have this tradition of transparency or watchdog organizations. We don't even have proper journalism anymore. Who is going to ask the simple journalist questions? Those 5 questions: who, when, why, what, and so on. I think the who question is resolved. How is not quite sure. How they are going to basically do it. And so. When I was talking about spatial planning, we used to have a mechanism which is called the DPU, detailed plan of uređenja. Detailed planning. The plan that will actually go into more details of the devil is in the details. And so, if you have detailed planning, then you can see if you have any devils or not. And we are not having that. So, therefore, it's obscured. If it's obscured, that means that somebody is either stupid or is somebody playing the game that is willingly being untransparent. And so, who should be asking the questions is the opposition to the current government, the journalists, and so on. And we don't have that. We have YouTubers and TikTokers and influencers and so on and so on. So, that's if you want to govern, it's a serious job. If you want to be a proper citizen, it's also a serious undertaking. I mean, if you have a strong identity, and the people that resist in Dubrovnik, for example, the people that I was speaking to in Dubrovnik, civil society and opposition to this sort of thing. They have really strong sense of belonging to the local community, and it pains them to see something being done without of the benefit of the community. So there is your answer. If you are that kind of a people, you will have people asking questions and creating knowledge and then creating resistance or directing into a better direction. If you don't, they're going to stomp you over. Then anybody can do anything with you, whatever. So maybe, as he's being a representative of liberal economy. Yeah, I'm going to expand on that. He's not, of course. And say that it's your destiny. Fulfill it. If you're gonna ask questions and fight for it, great, good for you. If not, I don't really care much for those sorts of people that are just letting it go in the background and having something happen. I'm sorry. I made a huge mistake in my presentation with not bringing the arts and philosophy angle into my frustration of the work. Banksy brilliantly did his thing with cruise ships and Venice. He did some as he is doing, interventions, and also with tourism. So I think art has a huge role to play because, as it was said, one picture, 1,000 words. With one Banksy, I could have explained what took me with 20 slides and 2,000 words. So yes, the art has a lot to contribute, and philosophy as well. My very last slide was about that we have to understand in what kind of a frame of mind we are at the moment as a consumerist society. And that then helps when you understand the problem, then it helps to proceed from that point.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just want to add one comment or question, and however, it's related to the consequences of organization of ordinary life in a touristic cities or small villages or whatever. I am telling you this from the experience of very touristic city, Umag, where, it's impossible to employ doctors. Nobody can afford to live in that city anymore. And this is a kind of one of the social consequences that is very tangible for the people who are living there, and they're not kind of related to tourism, because still people in touristic cities are living who are not related to touristic industry, and they are really struggling to survive in those cities. And also what those cities are facing a problem to organize a kind of decent life, kind of standard of living that is comfortable for our present, situation. So I would say that this is one of the consequences that those cities or state should, in a way, deal with it. Recent example is closing of the Podravka factory in Umag, precisely because of that reason, because workers in that factory are kind of paying heavy taxes on their work, while renting apartment, there is no taxes at all. This is a rules of the game, as Sven said, that rules of the game are such that are completely pushing you in renting activities. And just to the end, to say something about liberal economy. Liberal economy, if we take Adam Smith as a kind of origin of that economy, his Wealth of the Nation is basically written against the rent-seeking profit. This is a kind of renting, was totally opposed to the logic of early capitalism. So I would say that we need to take in account these kind of problems that are these small cities are kind of living in now. And as I think that Hrvoje said in his presentation, that this is a really important aspect, that for whom you are building these hotels, for whom you are building these apartments. And also this kind of renting on a kind of in a gray zone, in a kind of, without any registration, as you said on an example of Crikvenica, there is some estimation that in Novigrad, city in Istra, 70% of the renting is out of any system. 70% it's a big deal because Novigrad is one of these bigger circles on a kind of map of Istria. So I would say that we have really, really lots of problems and nobody is dealing with them. And also I would say that local governments, they don't have the tools to deal with that.
Thank you very much. I mean, your comments and the questions, it is maybe difficult to unpack. So let's start with which one? With the first one, with the hospitals. That's not true. So I know that Dubrovnik as a city is making on average 400 million kunas. I don't know how many euros would that be. Please help. Well, 57 million euros a year income for the budget of the city. So, I don't know how much is for Umag, but it's
similar.
Maybe it's 20 million euros. You can build a hospital in a year. Okay, so how come Rijeka has a KBC without tourism, and therefore, if Umag wanted, they could have said, okay, we're going to make we're going to be linked to the Rijeka KBC and then build whatever it's a priority for them. I don't know. They can do it. They don't want to. They're not interested. I mean, as simple as that. In Dubrovnik, they can do it. They can set up, as the city of Zagreb has their own, hospital system within the system of the national. Just divert some of that profit into improving that. So it's not true. It is possible. They can do it. They don't want to do it. So what do they do with that money is the question. Yeah, they make a lot of roundabouts, for cars, so they don't have to stop for the stoplights. They have invested in Umag, I don't know, for like 30 roundabouts, each costing 5 million euros for some reason, or 15. So, okay, that's the priority for Umag, not health, roundabouts, and lighting and making, whatever. So that's the priority, and this is the government you have voted for. So I don't know what to say besides what Darwin have said. I mean, if you're that silly, then please disappear and let somebody else come in. So as being harsh as that, why be empathic? You have the money, you can do whatever you want, and you are not doing it. So there is no excuse for that. Local government can do it if they would want to. Also, you were commenting, yes, let's make something clear. This 60% of local accommodation that is not being taxed. Chomsky said fabricated consent, and I would say this is same, but you can call it purchased consent. You are purchasing voters by not taxing it. It's nothing new. Okay, so if anybody would introduce tax, they would lose those voters, and the voters would vote for those populists. They would say that they would decrease taxes. So the main question is, what is the game here? What is the social contract we are having here? What is the social contract? And I think the social contract in Croatia as a post-communist country is some derivation of what we had in communism. There was a saying in Soviet Union, as long as the people were saying to the Communist Party, as long as you pretend to be governing and managing, we will pretend to be working. Okay? So it's a game of pretense. And in a way, it's not, it's something like that. As long as you are letting us make a lot of money for our own individual interest, we are going to keep you in power, and we are not going to be requesting any added value, such as hospitals and this and that, or having kindergartens in new urbanized areas and so on. And you can see that all over the place. So how to introduce enlightenment, I don't know, maybe through arts or philosophy or whatever.
Yes, but somehow it seems that also it cannot be simply, at least according to the rules we have now, simply to put everything on the local government, because many of instruments are in the hands of state government. So, for example, it is somehow in the state, it is part of the state law that you can put lump sum or tax on a tourist bed for 200 euros for short-term rent, and that actually you have bigger tax on long-term rent, which is 10% of the price you pay minus 30%. Okay, but let's say that actually somehow long-term rent is being more heavily taxed than short-term rent, and this is by the state law. So the local government cannot do it, cannot do anything. So, for example. No, I'm just saying that state government should change its policies.
I agree,
it is like what Sven said. We have to change the rules of the game.
He should answer, but
yeah,
I'm just going to
agree that he should answer.
I'm going to help to form the question of your good observation. Okay, I'm an American student. I studied in the United States. And over there, you know who is your congressman and you know who is representing you. I don't know who is representing me in the parliament. Okay? When I lived in this southern part of Zagreb, I was voting together with people from Karlovac and part of Gorski Kotar. So it's so-called gerrymandering. So it's, there is, I think, the answer. I think you should expand as a sociologist on that.
You think the problem is accountability? I agree. Okay, Sven.
Yeah, well, okay, don't let me even start on the voting. I can, because I was, when the Constitutional Court actually ordered the government to change it, I was in
15 years ago?
In 2000 it was first based, but okay.
20 years ago, and they're just doing it now
wrongly again. Okay, I mean, but it's not the topic for today, although it's an interesting topic. I can talk a lot about that. But what I wanted to say, and I think it has a lot with what Hrvoje said, is that when you think about when we think about democracy, we are really, in even this sense, really cut off from almost any level of representation. Secondly, I would say that one of the problems in how Croatian politics is even functioning and it's constructed is that we are stuck in some sort of pre-modern or early modern idea that building is development. I mean, when I say building, concrete, so if you have a lot of concrete in your city, so you're developed. When you have a lot of apartments, you are developed. So the social idea behind that is not really part of the equation, although we know that from the early 20th century, for example, social democracy was an idea that actually existed, for example, or maybe even mainly on providing people with acceptable housing and social services. Maybe one part of the equation is that we have lost the social services and building became the topic. And the other problem is when we get to the local level of government is that building is one of the main sources of income according to Croatian tax system. So building is actually encouraged by local government because it's a heavily centralized country and one of the few important sources of income is building. So that's why we have things like, for example, island of Vir, which is in Croatia is synonymous with overbuilding. And it's at the same time one of the most developed, according to Croatian measures or metrics, one of the most developed areas in the country as such. We had this development index, we still have it, we are waiting for the latest results, according to which in the first or second, I think, iteration of the most developed most developed municipality in Croatia at all was the municipality of Dugopolje, which is situated outside of Split, which had this really, really large growth of not industrial, more like warehouse and logistic buildings, and they had without sewage system, and they had enormous income from this, and they were in that year they were the most developed Croatian municipality, although they were I think twice below the national average in higher education. They didn't have an elementary school. They didn't have the unemployment rate was really through the roof. They were losing population, but they were really developed. Why? Because they managed to get a lot of money from that. What did they do with it? Almost nothing. The other problem is that, as I said, so the municipalities do have incentive to actually encourage something like that. So when we talk about Croatian economy, we should think about how the centralized country, the one I was showing you before, should maybe lower the income or sources of income to this level, and maybe there would be incentive to have something else apart from tourism, which now really isn't the case. And also, earlier I was talking about liberal economy. Now I'm going to talk about Marxist economy, just for the balance. And I would like to add that when we are talking about Croatia, we are, to just echo Wallerstein's concept, the periphery of Europe. So essentially, we are a country that competes with everybody else for our own resources. I mean, I'm not nationalist, but local resources in this country, which means that almost anybody who comes to this country has more money than local people from Germany, Austria, Norway, whatever. And they are, not Norway, they're not in the EU, but all others have more money, and they are in the free market. So essentially, there is legally nothing, and it's just our standard of living, Darwinism. I like Darwin very much. We share the same birthday. So I'm inclined to be a Darwinist when we are speaking about birthdays. And that is why I would say that we, in this position where the local municipalities are really encouraged to build a lot because it's their main source of income, when people with more money are seeing the coast as a resource and investing in it, and they're not really interested in social infrastructure because they don't live here, mainly. I would say that it's almost a vicious circle of sorts that cannot really be resolved without some sort of intervention, be it different tax system, be it different urban planning, be it maybe the requirement, like in socialism, that the companies that are making some profit of building should invest in some social infrastructure, and then that we have a special fund where the money is being siphoned for hospitals, schools, and so on, something like that. I don't know. I'm not an economist, but I'm just seeing the situation as it is. I think that all these things should be, accounted for, and I think that we do need a radical turn on how tourism is working. I have seen that in Dubrovnik, the mayor they have cut on the number of cruising tourism. He's lying. Okay, they didn't, sorry. Okay, so that didn't happen? No. Huh. Okay, and they were discussing, decreasing the number of apartments, which is impossible. Also lying. Okay, so there are, so much about accountability. I mean, you probably know that situation more. But what I do know is that I'm not surprised by this because, as I said, they are incentivized to do so. And also, never forget, cruising tourism is a very large business that can invest in local politicians. And when I say invest, I literally mean that, give them some money and then they will be good for business. And that's it. Local municipalities they do have incentive to do that. We are an economically weak country that cannot compete for their own resources, and there is a lot of corruption. So guess what? It's a quite bleak perspective, I would say, for the country.
Yes, and actually, just to add that they can even pay to build a detailed special planning plan. So they can also pay if they like, the investors.
I think that I have a question. I mean, it all boils down to the demand and supply in politics, and I do not understand this. So my accountability is one of the arena. You know, if there is no demand for accountability from our sides as voters, this is what we have. I mean, so what are we talking about? People don't care about topics. I mean, when you look at the discussions in any parliament, you can pretty quickly decide what is the average thinking of people in that country. You know, as simple as that. I'm not impressed with German energy strategic thinking for the last 30 years. I think it's incredibly stupid and retarded. You know, so how come that came about? And we have, so with tourism and infrastructure and overbuilding and over-tourism, we have the same. So, you know, is that, and are we doomed as Homo sapiens being stupid now that we have all of the information? I don't know. So that's the big question. This is, I mean, we do not, I don't like Marxist approach in thinking. What I like is a French approach, meaning that if you are a philosopher and you have something of content to say and you have the courage to stand in front of the public, then the public should be able to question you, even crucify you on the topics you are trying to present. What we are presenting, all three of us, making you depressed, that there is obviously more than enough of information, statistics, and knowledge that, you know, in a way we are doomed. And we are, you know, cynical and frustrated as scientists, not knowing, you know, how to, you know, divert this obvious wrong trajectory. You know, if you're talking about micro and nanoplastic being in the bloodstreams of organisms that we eat and consume, or if you're talking about, you know, local communities not even caring if they have kindergartens and hospitals in their vicinity, you know, what do you know? How do you produce this change? It's a question for you people. I mean, you have some EU project that are discussing interesting topics. You know, how do you do that? You know, by provocation, by what? I don't know, but there is more than enough. Most of the things that we have been talking here are actually being taught in decent universities. It's like basic knowledge for the first year students, right? So it's not like, you know, we are bringing you something really fresh. We're just bringing, maybe with some examples, but, you know, what is the point? How do we change societal way of thinking? That's I think the way to go. Maybe, I mean, I've been stating my case. I think bottom up is the approach. You know, take each example and try to produce the change, as this hotel Villa Dvor was doing, and those intelligent people try, you know, focus on that. Otherwise, you're going to get depressed seriously. So, you know, take something that is, you know, you believe in, and then try something more or something else, and just, you know, you have to create your own personal belief, because I think the system is corrupt, and it's corrupt from the, you know, large numbers. You know, voters want to have low taxes, and there are a lot of voters that have private accommodation. They are not going to vote for somebody who is avant-garde and introduce new taxes so you can build schools or even hospitals, because that didn't happen in Dubrovnik or Umag that have a lot of money. Okay, so I think that's the bottom line. After 20 or so years or 30 years, admit how long you know, this is what that's the bottom line. This is what we came as the question as scientists, and this is not our main task of scientific research, but all of us come to the same point. I mean, talk to other professors or people from institutes, and they will all tell you, yeah, we are frustrated. We have frustrated in a way that we know what is going to happen, and we know that politicians know, and we know that even citizens know, and it's being taught in the universities, and even you know maybe even in high schools, and there is no demand for new breed of politicians that will bring this to the front as the priority for change?
Maybe the answer is in discounting the future, that actually we know what will happen, but simply we do not value it as a recent, as a more short-term monetary benefit. So the people in Zadar, if they told them, but you will overbuild it, you will not have kindergartens, then simply they say, well, I don't care about what will happen in 5 years, I will get money now. So actually that's the phenomenon. So what I wanted to ask you, do you actually know of any example how coordination solved the tragedy of the common problem? Simply coordination and not state regulation. I mean, there are examples from Elinor Ostrom and about the fishermen in Turkey and all of this, but in context of urban planning, I somehow think that it's really hard to simply say that citizens themselves. I agree with you that they must start being worried about urban planning, about spatial issues, and for example, they have to be concerned about what is going on with the city. But somehow I don't think that we can simply say that they should be the one who solved the tragedy of the commons. Maybe simply we need some good regulation. But I agree with you that if there is no demand for regulation, that there is no supply of regulation. So we're back.
We are back. It's a vicious cycle, and
Okay.
also we don't have the tradition of respecting the regulation. Nobody's asking if the regulation is being delivered, materialized. We have strategies that are not being. So okay, let's have an exercise. The strategy. What is the strategy? You make a plan and then you don't do it. This is how we do it in Croatia and similar countries. Okay? But also you can consider that the strategy is, you can take a look at the strategy not about what was proclaimed to be done, but what was done. You can say, okay, the strategy of the Roman emperor was, try to do this and that, but what they have delivered. So what we have delivered so far is that we have decreased our population from 4.5 to 3.8 million people. So our strategy for the last 30 years was to decrease the number of people. Our strategy was to have 40 or 50,000 people leave Croatia in the last 10 years, not the people that are highly educated or highly skilled to go to Germany, to go to Ireland, to go to, wherever. So that was our strategy, to get rid of that people. And I think maybe you have this information when you ask when the people, I don't know if it was a survey, why did you leave? Money was not, priority for highly educated. It was the frustration that nothing could be done, and that we are not meritocracy. It's not important what you know, but who you know. And this is, I think, confirmed by some of the research of Burić and Stuhlhofer. They actually, kind of prove that. So this is, please, when you say strategy, don't look at the documents. Look at what was the strategy up to now through delivery. So strategy of UMAG was not to have any facility to care for the health of their citizen. It was the roundabouts so they can drive their car without stopping. That was their strategy. By fact, not by intent, the strategy of the city that it's someplace on the website nobody reads. So I think we should look at it like that.
Okay, thank you. So now it's already 7:50, and I suppose that we can stop here. And thank you, Hrvoje, thank you, Sven, thank you, Neven. And does someone wants to close in name of organization? No? If not, then thank you all for coming in the name of organizers.